For some reason, OBS it doesn't seem to be including the audio as part of scenes. I have no idea. I keep meaning to do something about like setting it up properly, and then just never do because there's a million and one things that need doing. So today, as I said on Twitter and Facebook and all the other places, I've got the last remaining pieces of the Nordic building kits. I've posted the Nordic house up for sale already. The Nordic farm, which is appearing on screen now, is going to be going up for sale as soon as the instructions are finished. And the longhouse, the largest kit and the one that sort of set the bits of the internet I posted it on fire, is right here in front of you. And I just need to build the final production one so I can take pictures of it, so I can go make the instructions. But I thought, if I'm going to do it, may as well do it in front of an audience. So you will be my live studio audience. And you'll all get to see how simple these are to put together. If you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I'm really bad at making sure that I don't leave super glue on the end of the super glue applicator, and so it dries into this weird crusty bit. And then the super glue doesn't close, and so it gets bigger, and then eventually I lose like a third of a bottle of super glue. Which is why I usually buy like little ones, but Amazon was selling these at 3 times the cost of a big one. Anyway, whilst this might look a bit intimidating in terms of just the sheer number of parts, don't worry, it is actually really rather simple to put together. So, we have got a bunch of these arches. Three arches, and then 2 end pieces, one of which I accidentally snapped. But this will be a great opportunity to show you that even that isn't really an issue, because it goes together so easily. And actually I've made a minor modification to the file to just kind of prevent that from happening in the future. So we're going to start out by taking the 2 side wall pieces, which you'll notice have got these slots in the side, and what we're going to do is we're going to take these. I'm going to take the largest one that's got a little Pinocchio nose, I guess that's what I'm going to call that. This one will go in the middle, and it's very important that the nose is pointing out to the side that's got the extra notches in it. So I'll take one of the smaller ones. I want to just apply a little bit of super glue to where the joins are going to go. I'm using super glue. You're free, other people are free to use wood glue or PVA. I am just lazy and impatient. And I don't want to wait for wood glue or PVA to dry, and I can't be bothered to go look up fast drying versions of these things. I guess if I did, like I'd probably end up gluing myself to things far less often. Might be a bonus, but instead I just buy, you can buy a chemical called superglue debonder, or often sold as cyanacrylic debonder, because that's that's the like technical name of what super glue is. And it just attacks super glue bonds and dissolves them. And it's wonderful stuff. And if you've ever if you ever glue yourself together like in a serious medical way, that's what they'll use at A&E to get you unstuck. And typically it's one of the first things, like if people stick themselves to trains, that the police will try. But it's a really useful thing just to have around the house if you ever use super glue with like kids present, because it means that it's a lot, in the event that they do, like, I don't know, stick their hand to their face. I don't know if that's actually a thing children do. In theory I was a child once. So before I go a little further, any further, I'm just going to perform a quick little impromptu repair using 2 little scraps of MDF that came out of one of the roof pieces. Which, if you've ever like broken a piece in half on any sort of MDF kit, you'll usually end up with a bunch of these little pieces just kind of lying around anyway. And this kit comes on purpose with a lot of sort of deep score marks, just to try and make that sort of wood detail stand out a little bit more and survive painting that bit better. Because it's like one of my all-time pet peeves of kits that have just got like effectively lines drawn on with a laser. And then you paint them, and then all those lovely lines go away because they're now full of paint. And so here I've put really nice deep lines on it. But it does mean that if you're not careful, you can just accidentally snap it. And other manufacturers, I know Sarissa do some really nice kits with really nice deep etchings on them for where they've got etched stuff. If you ever damage them. So whilst that's drying, you'll see we've got the other side here. They're basically identical. I'm going to take this opportunity to start building the roof. So if I just grab the assembled one, which is actually kind of if you look at this kit, it is effectively the top half of this one, just with a door and a little side shack. But actually, the roof has got a nice pleasing curve to it. And if I just sort of turn it over and show you, the roof is held on with these supports. And so the easiest way to put these supports on, when I've been assembling the test versions of these, half the time I'd build it almost all the way up to the roof and then sort of have to struggle to get the roof supports in, and they just fit neatly. There's little notches in the beams of the roof beams, roof arches. I did an entire online course on architecture so that I would know words for things, and yeah, I don't. But they fit quite neatly into there, and then you could glue them in. You could dab some glue in before you stick them in, or you could do what I'm doing here and just put a dab of super glue in once they've sat, or once they're in. This one I'm going to do the quote-unquote proper way and actually put the glue in before I This also helps to give the kit a little bit more rigidity. It stops it from being quite so, or it sort of makes the roof more rigid, which gives the whole building, like, it's not going to it's not going to wobble once it's assembled. I know I've bought and built some kits over the years that have been very, how do I put it, fragile. Like you pick them up and they sort of go off square. Um, Maybe one day I'll do like a sort of terrain of other people's MDF kits I like. It's about to do like a mock. This stream is brought to you by Yorkshire Gold. And then realised that probably I shouldn't. Like, pretending I've got an ad. Like, look, don't think any of you would believe me if I told you that I'd got an advertising deal from Yorkshire Gold. So here there are 4 little extra bits that the sort of lower roof attaches to. I cannot. So I am like a massive tea snob. Like, I will defend other people's right to sort of drink whatever it is that tickles their fancy, but just the idea of biscuit flavoured tea just, I don't know, makes me curdle inside. That said, I've got a cupboard filled with tea, and like an amazing variety of teas. But a lot of the time it is just the case of, I can't be bothered. I don't want to have to sort of make proper tea and then clean the teapot and all that. Just I've tried all sorts, not literal all sorts. It's always bugged me that that's a thing. But yeah, Yorkshire tea is just, in my mind, the nicest of just like the standard tea bag teas. So it's at this point that you can start to see the kit come together with sort of one of the ends on, as it were. At this point, one of the eternal problems of trying to write instructions for assembling model kits is, what order do you tell people to do stuff in? Like, there's a million orders that'll work, and often the only difference between them is nothing. They're all okay. Like, although in hindsight, I should have attached the side roof supports before doing this, so you get to see me just doing that quickly. And here you can kind of see the where I've stuffed up. but trust me that once it's been sprayed up and painted, or painted by hand, like you don't have to use spray cans or airbrushes or anything. You'll never notice. So there, it's, to my eye, starting to look a lot like a building. So the next step is I'm going to start putting the roof on around the base, because as you can see in the little image that I've handily put to the right of the screen, this has got like a two-tiered roof, which was I found a lot of people, I found it on a lot of like the illustrations of like Viking buildings from, I don't know, like kids, like I think it was like primary school kids, like, I don't want to say textbooks because like 7-year-olds don't have textbooks, but like instructional books and like classroom lessons. Classroom packs. And I also found a bunch of historians arguing incessantly over whether or not the archaeological evidence supports sticking this kind of two-tiered roof on. And I'm like, I'm making tiny buildings for people to fight over with fictional Vikings. I like them, they're going on. However, if any historian wanted to pay me to make historically accurate buildings, right, just drop me an email at connor@shearwood.games and I will quite happily take their money and make them historically accurate buildings. Or if you're happy with like historically inspired buildings, this one will be up on sale probably later this week from me, along with a bundle of this, the farm, some fences and the smaller house at a discount, possibly as good as a 20% discount. I haven't decided yet. One of the downsides to using super glue is because it dries so fast. A lot of there are a couple of areas like here where there's 4 pins to go in, 4 sort of registration pins to go in. It would be easier to do with PVA where you could take your time a little bit more, whereas if I take my time too much on them, the super glue dries. So now I've just got to glue on one of the roof sides, which I do by applying glue to the roof supports on the arches, and by applying glue to the slots on the roof. And also the sides of the roof. And then we slot the whole thing in place and then just briefly hold it. And then I'm going to take one of these top roof sections and we're going to do essentially the same thing. Though I'm applying glue just to this side, or just to this piece, he says, and then just quickly goes and dabs some glue there. So before we put the roof on so you can kind of, you can start to see the building coming together. I've said that like several times now, and I apologise for that. But one of the details that I found on a lot of like the reference art that I was using to design this building was that a lot of them had like a sort of porch, and this one was held up by historical evidence. And the idea was it sort of functioned like an airlock to sort of trap heat in the building, because obviously a lot of this stuff was sort of in Iceland, Greenland, other places that were not particularly hospitable to life. So we're just going to build quickly a little porch. And this same set of pieces is found on the house model, which helps sort of tie them together as sort of being built by the same group of people in roughly the same period of time. And so you can sort of see that there. One of the things I'm quite proud of on this kit is the fact that with the exception of on the roofs, where you won't be able to see them once you put thatch or tile or whatever on top, there are no visible joins on the kit whatsoever. So here I'm just adding the doors. You don't have to glue the doors in. You could quite easily so just attach like a little bit of fabric or cloth or something, and have them sort of opening. You can, without sort of sacrificing the structural qualities, cut an opening in the back wall behind it. Right there, and I've just applied the door frame. So the next step is I'm just going to stick a little bit of glue on the gable here at the front and attach the porch roof. And then if I can find, so one of the things that I've added to this kit just to give it that little extra bit of detail is all of the roof segments have these little sort of lintels, and they all intersect a little bit with the crest of the roof. Again, I took an entire architecture course and it was apparently worthless. What do you call a roof? What do you call the top bit of a roof? Who knows? But that just glues onto the front there and just gives it that little bit of extra detailing. So from there we can now I've done that in the wrong order. I should have put this bit of roof on, then installed that roof. It's not the end of the world. It'll just take a little bit of finessing to. So I'm just going to have to take it off camera to do this because I've cocked this up. This is why I'm going to provide instructions so that you don't have to cock this up. So this is one of the lovely things about using super glue is that super glue will wick really nicely into tiny gaps. Wick is in move, sort of, which means that you can put a thing in place and then glue it. And so then I've just got this last side piece. That all I need to do is just drop into place here. Damn it. And because I was trying to do it fancy on camera, I've defects add character, right? Hi Ryan. Yeah, you'll hardly be able to notice those bits once it's painted. Alright, so we're almost ready to put the roof on. but these sort of these end gable walls are looking a bit bare, which is why the kit comes with these parts. So I think I might be no. Oh, that's Sam. So these bits just press. I just realised I did that off camera. It's a good thing I've got the other side to do as well. So these bits just press in here and both hide some of the joins and also provide just a little bit of 3D detail to the side of the wall. And here you'll see that where I accidentally snapped it in half, most of that will end up covered up by the large central piece. And that was like I hadn't broken it. And then finally, we've got some extra little lintels that go on the end of the gables here. That just help to complete it and just make it so it's not, so the wall just doesn't just end. And then we can just repeat that over here. So, granted, this is the second one of these I've built, and like the sixth one in this range that I've built. More than that, actually, like 8th. But I've been going at this under 45 minutes so far. And that's included just sort of generally chatting. So we've now got the top of the roof, the spine, the crest, the whatever you want to call it. We've got the 8 roof tiles, and we've got 2 end lintels that I'm just going to kind of generally throw about the place. So, placing that to one side for a moment, the first thing we're going to want to do is sort these out. There are 2 sets of 4. And by looking at sort of the curvature of the roof, you can kind of figure out where they go. And by sort of making sure that the laser burnt side is the same way up, you can help sort of identify where the sort of mirrored pieces go. So, how well these pieces go on depends quite heavily on how accurately you put the rest of it together. But as like a little tip, you can just take a sharp knife and you can just sort of cut a little relief bevel in the back of each piece where it joins onto the roof. This will just help guide the relief pin, or guide these pins into these holes, and even if you leave it bare, you can't see from when it's on the table. And sometimes this isn't necessary. Sometimes this just, well, they just go on if you've been if you've been very accurate, very careful, and if I'm honest, a little bit lucky. But because they go on at a weird angle, they can just sometimes take a little bit of finesse or finessing. So I'm going to just apply glue to where it's going to go. Then I'm just going to press it into place using my fingers sort of through the gap. And then I repeat with the second. Piece. Like I said earlier, one of the advantages of super glue is it dries quickly, which means that if you were doing this with sort of PVA or wood glue, I'd probably recommend pausing at the steps before, leaving it overnight for that glue to properly dry and set. But as you can see, like 30 seconds of prep work has made this much easier. He says as the last one fights back. But that roof is now on. I can now turn that around. This second side is a little bit harder because you can't reach in from the other side anymore. But you can just kind of pick the whole thing up. And it's only really a problem for the end ones, because the inner ones have got sort of support on two sides, whereas the end ones don't. And whilst I could have just butted it up against the end wall here, I didn't. I feel like that would have been introducing, it's an extra place that stuff could have interfered. I am experimenting with increasing the tolerances on, well, I guess decreasing the tolerances, making these holes bigger, seeing whether or not that makes them easier to assemble or just makes it sloppy. But there, that's the other side. Like I said, whilst you can't just reach in, you can pick the whole thing up, and once you've just gotten it square, just press it on. The astute among you may have noticed that this one had a little bit of a label on it. Slightly frustratingly, my standard supplier for MDF usually, when I order it in bulk, usually ships me sort of rolls of like 10 or 50 sheets of MDF, but this time they sent me 100 individual sheets. Whilst it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, they've each got a stock control sticker on them, and it's just a little teensy bit of a hassle to take it off. And given that this I knew, well, sometimes they don't come off so easy, and since I knew this one was mine, and given that they were located on pieces that weren't going to be visible, I just left them on. But there. Lots of people have suppliers for MDF. Like, since moving to Nottingham and becoming involved in like the wonderful Nottingham Tabletop Industry Collective, I have been christened the official mad scientist of the Nottingham tabletop industry. No, it didn't. It didn't take very long at all. In fact, I think someone said it like very shortly after I'd moved here, because I'd been complaining that Nottingham City Council was very good at a lot of things, and very good at a lot of things regarding like sort of household waste. Won't accept dangerous or industrial chemicals, even in small quantities. To which the general answer was, "You've been here all of like 3 weeks. Why do you need to get rid of dangerous and or industrial chemicals?" And I'm like, doesn't everyone? And apparently no. No, most people don't. I just wanted to do some brass etching, and this just involves buying some slightly unpleasant chemicals. And before I did it, I wanted to make sure that I could get rid of them safely. So, because because I was chattering whilst I was doing that last bit, I've just attached the lintels at the end, which have got little notches so that they sit on these raised details. And then as like the literal last piece of this kit, we've got the spine of the roof, which just sits between the two lintels on the gable. It helps keep the whole kit together through a kind of sort of tension, and it just sort of rounds the top of the kit off. Because it's a weird angle, you can't bring the bits together, so instead. But yeah, well, OBS says I've been streaming for about 51 minutes. I had the starting at 8 o'clock thing up for a couple of minutes, but this has taken less than an hour to build. It'd be a lovely centerpiece on any kind of Viking, Norse, Dark Ages, or even a sort of themed fantasy wargaming table. You can either tile it with cardboard or sort of card strips that are available from a wide variety of manufacturers, or ones you can make, or thatch. And something I'm kind of excited to announce is that, all things going well, you'll be able to buy this and potentially the other two kits in pre-coloured form, possibly with a thatch kit, don't know yet, still sort of having chats, from Foreground. So the texture on the walls, that is entirely intentional. It's to give it sort of that sort of wood planking effect. But the texture sort of like on these bits, no, that's a side effect of the cutting. So yeah, I can now go stick this in the light box, take some photos. Just want to have a look. Fortunately, this kit doesn't have an interior. I'm like, as I was saying to someone recently, I'm recovering from making way too large model kits. I used to make a windmill that was nearly a foot tall. This is much more of a gaming scale model. But as a result, I don't really feel like it lends itself to having an interior. Other people may disagree with me. I guess if you really wanted to, you could make a handful of cuts to the material itself, and the sort of top section could come off. But like, I think that's a little bit overboard. So, thank you very much for tuning in. I've got like a third of a cup of tea left. So I guess if anyone has got any questions, I'm happy to stick around for a little bit and answer them. Or otherwise, I might call it there. Thank you for tuning in. Well, I guess thank you very much for watching, and if you're interested, I'm going to be doing a proper scheduled live stream. Blah blah blah. I suddenly can't speak. Let's try that again. On Thursday, I'm going to be doing a scheduled live stream where I will be building the second version of the space station that I was showing off on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram earlier this week, and also talking about Solar Dominion and the new Solar Dominion board game that I took to Protospiel this weekend. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you tune in next time. Have a lovely night.